keep going. John the Baptist's testimony is a fulfillment of prophecy. You know what prophecy is? Like Old Testament, somebody said something, and several hundred years later it happened, right? 1,000 years later it happened. There was a time where Isaiah wrote in 43, said, a voice of one calling in the wilderness, prepare the way for the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Isaiah said, there will come a time where somebody will do this. There will be somebody who stands in the desert, dressed funny, stinks to high heaven, and eats weird things. Right? Right? Like there was a joke, and I can't remember it, but it had to do with what's the similarities between John the Baptist and Winnie the Pooh? It was something about eat locusts and honey or something like that. But anyway, it was kind of silly, so that's why I didn't remember it. And then I said it anyway and butchered it. But anyway, the point is, Isaiah tells us there will come a time where these things will happen. And here's John the Baptist, who was raised a preacher's kid, who chose to live in the desert and wear camel's hair, eat locusts and honey, and basically declaring and preparing the way of Christ. And he's saying here, John's reminding us here that John the Baptist is on the scene, and he's saying the light has come into the world. And he's telling them, make straight your paths. John goes on to say, he came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. John the Baptist is making it very clear at this point, and John is reiterating it in his gospel here. There is a Messiah, and he will come, and John the Baptist has just very clearly told us he has come. So the Word and the light, and now John the Baptist is telling us that this Messiah has come, that salvation is here, and that we need to be prepared for it, and we need to accept it. It's all happening. But John still hasn't told us what the Word is and what light is, has he? He's kind of still got us on the edge of our seat. This prologue was written to open our eyes and our minds and our ears to the things of God. Okay? Let's look at verse 14 real fast. Go back to verse 14. Somehow the slides got a little out of order. Sorry, guys. In verse 14 of John chapter 1, it says, the Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. Who is this Word? Who? Come on, say it. Who's the Word? Jesus. Who's the light? Jesus. John has done a very great thing and an awesome thing here in his writing to basically make sure that we understand, whether we're of a Jewish background or whether we're non-Jewish background, that we understand that God was in the beginning of everything through Christ, and that Christ created the earth, and that because of Christ that he's come into the world as the light to make known to men who he is. Has anybody ever shared their faith with Christ and they've just totally rejected you? Or you've basically told them you love Jesus, or you go to church and they laugh at you? I know everybody in here has probably had that happen. You know, you get shunned or picked on for some reason. Well, there's a battle going on, and it's light and dark. It's Jesus and the devil. And John's done a good job here of making sure we understand that the Word was in the very beginning, and that it's come in the form of light, and Jesus has come to this earth to pay the penalty of our sin. He's setting us up so that when we get ready to understand all these miracles that happen, we understand why they happened. I mean, it makes perfect sense now if you understand that when Jesus healed somebody, it's easy for him to do. Why? Because he was in the beginning. He created it all. Right? I want to share something with you that's interesting about the Bible, and it's interesting about those who reject you because of your faith, and it's interesting about Satan and his demons. And we're going to get to a very valid point here in a second, but I need you to understand one thing. Many people claim to know who Jesus is, but have yet to trust in him and accept the salvation he offers. We know from studying the Bible that even the demons believe in Jesus. Mark, if you're taking notes, write this down. Mark chapter 3, verse 11 says, whenever the impure spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." And again in Luke 4:41 it says, moreover the demons came out of many people shouting, "You are the Son of God." But he rebuked them and would not allow them to speak because they knew he was the Messiah. Even Satan and his demons knew that Jesus was the Messiah. It's important today, here's where we're going to get to the application of it. It's important for you today to understand who is this Jesus that you follow. And where he's come from, and who he is, and what he's going to do, so that you can stay strong in your faith. But more importantly, it's not just so you can stay strong, but more importantly, it's so that you can share your faith with others. See, guess who's the light now? Jesus lives in you. You're the vessel to shine his light to the lost people around you. You want to make a difference in your school? You want to make a difference in your community? You want to make a difference in this youth group? Tell a friend about Jesus. I've given you a little bit of information here just to kind of give you some confidence in who Jesus is. That he is the Word, which is this, not just this Bible, but it's this Bible alive. I mean, think about that. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And in the beginning, God created, right? In the beginning, God created. Here's some stuff I wrote. I'm just going to read it. Satan is the ruler of darkness, and he desires to shut the true light out of the eyes and minds of God's creation. It is more important today for us as Christians to stand up and live for Christ. The world we live in is a dark place. Look around you at all the sin we are exposed to and how the government and groups of people want to find this sin acceptable. Morality is falling at a fast rate, and we as Christians must do something to turn the pages. Look, it's our responsibility. We are the reason that it's happening. We're going to be attacked as what we believe, and people are going to come against us, but it is our responsibility, and if the last time I checked, if God is big enough to create the world through his Word, then he's big enough to support us in our causes, when those causes are his causes. But when we don't care about his causes anymore, look what happens. We have to tell people about Jesus. We are the vessel God uses to make himself known. We have been trusted with this task. John's gospel is alive and active today. John's word speaks to us as the validity of Christ and sets the stage with our eyes, mind, and hearts open to the rest of the gospel. I told you before that the gospel is broken down into two sections. It's the book of signs, which we're going to take a look at, and the book of glory, which we're going to take a look at. But in order for us to understand the signs and the glory that Jesus offers, we must understand who Jesus really is and was and always will be. That is the confidence of the prologue of this gospel. I shared with you a video of a pastor saying, "Do you know him?" And he made some pretty strong statements in there. So my question for you tonight is, have you discovered this word? Have you discovered this light? Do you know who it is? Do you know Christ? I brought this chair up here for a reason. Y'all all know this is a chair, right? Anybody have any other words for it? It's a chair. There's really not many other words for it. I have knowledge and belief that this chair will hold me up if I sit in it, right? But when does it truly become faith? When does it become faith? If I know it's a chair and I know it's got four legs and I know it'll hold up to a 500-pound man, when do I know that that it's faith and what it'll do? When I actually sit down in it. Right? I mean, it's kind of a silly illustration, people, but here's what I want you to know. The reason I shared with you that even the demons believed in Jesus is because here's the deal. Just because they believe and know who Jesus is does not mean they will be in heaven with us. So is it enough to just believe in Jesus? It can't be enough to just believe in Jesus. Listen to Romans 10:9. Carlos, do you mind just coming up and playing your guitar for a second? Just something slow. I should have asked you earlier. Sorry. Romans 10:9 says this. If you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Sorry, Carlos. Romans 10:9. If you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Much like this chair, right? If this is Jesus, and I stand here and admire him, and I look at him and say, wow, that's a great chair. I know it'll hold me up, but I don't ever sit in it. Does it ever fulfill its purpose, and do I ever fulfill my purpose? Nope. I mean, that's the whole point. But if this is Jesus, and I put my faith there, and I say, I think this is Jesus, and I believe he died on the cross, and I believe he raised from the dead, and I believe he conquered sin, and I believe that he will bring me into eternity, it will only legitimately happen when you confess it with your mouth and you put your faith where that is and you sit in it and you accept it. And here's what I'm afraid with young people today happens. Can I be honest with you and tell you this is what I'm afraid happens with young people? Because our society tends to think it's just okay to say, believe in Jesus. We live in what's called a postmodern world where the lines of separation are getting erased. So it's okay for a Muslim to have lunch with a Christian and a Christian to have lunch with a Buddhist and a Buddhist to have lunch with whatever, and to sit around and discuss their faith and for everybody to say, well, I'm glad you believe that. This is what I believe. Well, I'm glad you believe that.